One of the things that's really motivated me is seeing the trajectory of this country. And I've become very concerned that some of the great things that I saw growing up, particularly in Virginia, were at risk. I moved out to the Fredericksburg area when I was 6 years old. My dad had wanted to found a church, so he moved us out to Fredericksburg and founded what ultimately became Calvary Chapel of Fredericksburg. And even at 6 or 7 years old, I could tell that this was a place that really took care of its resources, that took care of its people, that respected people who had served, whether they were police or firefighters or teachers or those who had served in the military. And I really appreciated the fact that this was an area that respected those values that meant a lot to me, things like faith and family and service. You know, one of the things that really impacted me about living in Virginia as a young child was all the history that was here. We actually, when we first moved out from California, moved onto the same property where George Washington had grown up. And so walking around in those areas, the same places where, according to legend, George Washington had chopped down a cherry tree and thrown the silver dollar across the Rappahannock River, that really had an impact on me as a kid. We didn't have a lot of money growing up as the son of a pastor and the oldest of 6 kids. You know, there wasn't a lot extra, but my parents always did a great job of making sure that we had everything that we needed and most of what we wanted. But you know, as I got a little older and got to the end of high school, I really started to think about those financial issues as I had gotten into a great school, but knew that my parents didn't have the resources to pay for it. And it was really at that time that I grew to appreciate how great it was to live in a country that had as a fundamental value that everybody should be able to go to school, even if their parents can't pay for it. And ultimately, through a combination of loans and grants and working odd jobs through school and a lot of top ramen and cheap pizza, I managed to make it through 4 years of college and 3 years of law school without racking up the kind of debt that would limit my options in the future. As I was getting toward the end of my time in law school, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next, where I wanted to start my career. And I had lined up a whole series of interviews on campus with all of the big corporate law firms. And then I had one of those real life-changing events, because the first day of that on-campus interview period was September 11th, 2001. And so as I was sitting there watching those events unfold, watching the towers come down and the attacks on the Pentagon, I really started thinking in a new way about what I wanted to do. And it was ultimately that experience that convinced me that I really wanted to give something back to the country that had done so much for me. And so it wasn't too long after that that I signed up for and joined the Air Force.
Well, Adam's actually the brother of my best friend. So we first met on a family vacation on the beaches of Waikiki. And we were out on the beach and Adam walked out with a stack of books and a t-shirt on, and he's pretty pale because he hadn't seen the sun a few years because he'd been working so much. And so the first impression was that, wow, this guy's dedicated. He was getting ready to do a tour in Korea with the US Air Force JAG Corps. At the same time, I was getting ready to serve overseas with the missions organization. And I think it was that shared experience in service and that desire to be a part of something greater than ourselves that really created a lasting bond between the two of us.
So after 6 years on active duty, I transferred into the reserves. But not long after that, I started to hear from some of my friends and colleagues that there was a real need for attorneys to go help to deal with all of the detainees that we had captured as a result of the surge over in Afghanistan. And so seeing that need, I talked to my wife and decided that I was going to volunteer to go and put on the uniform again and serve in Afghanistan.
I knew that he had to go overseas and be a part of the mission in Afghanistan. I knew that he had to help work to rebuild the Afghan justice system. There
was one event that happened while I was in Afghanistan that really had a significant impact on me. We were meeting with the Afghan High Peace Council over at the detention facility, and they had asked for us to consider releasing a couple of our detainees as part of their reconciliation efforts. And as we're doing introductions around the room, somebody says, and this, pointing to the gentleman who's sitting right next to me, this guy is Nur Aziz, and as of a couple of months ago, he was a Taliban commander, and had actually been one of the Taliban district governors when the Taliban ran Afghanistan. And there was this really fascinating conversation that occurred between Nur Aziz and this very squared away, professional, but tough looking Marine officer. And the Marine officer starts explaining to Nur Aziz the American concept of honor. And Nur Aziz responds by explaining the Afghan concept of reconciliation. And as I was sitting there listening to this fascinating conversation between these two men, it really occurred to me that if these two people who had literally understood it as their duty to try to kill each other a couple of months before can have a civil and productive conversation about the future of Afghanistan, that it's absolutely unacceptable that our elected leaders in Congress can't sit together and have that same kind of civil and productive conversation about the future of our country.
I could tell that Adam was really feeling frustrated by Congress and the fact that they just couldn't perform some of their most basic functions. And so I said to him, honey, now isn't the time to be on the sidelines. You can get involved and make a difference.
We're at a turning point in this country, and we need leadership. We need people who have served in a tough environment, who have served in an environment where failure is not an option, where you have to keep working together and fighting together until you solve the problems that are in front of you. And that's something that I really think is missing with too many of our members of Congress, with too many of our political leaders. And that is something that I hope to be able to provide.